Welcome back to CIA Declassified. Today we look at an operation that proves intelligence work isn't always about high-tech satellites. Sometimes it's about the alignment of Mars and Jupiter. The setting is a humid morning in Saigon, 1960. A local politician opens his morning paper, skips the headlines, and turns straight to the horoscopes section. He reads that a dark shadow looms over men born in the year of the dragon. By noon, he's resigned. He wasn't scared of a coup. He was scared of his own horoscope. This wasn't fate. This was Project JIDDART. How did a psychological operation end up with the name that sounds like a piece of occult machinery? The name Project JIDDART was a cryptonym generated during the transition of the Far East Division's psychological warfare branch. While many CIA project names are random, JIDDART followed the JI diagraph used for operations in Southeast Asia during that era. The factual reason for choosing this specific operational path was the agency's realization that in many Southeast Asian cultures, astrology was not considered a hobby. It was a respected science used by leaders to make military and political decisions. If the agency could control the stars, they could control the leaders. The agency didn't just hire spies. They hired stargazers and fortune tellers. The operation involved recruiting local astrologers and palm readers in countries like Vietnam and Cambodia. These assets were paid to plant specific predictions in widely read newspapers and to whisper omens into the ears of high-ranking communist officials. A quote from a declassified 1962 memorandum on psychological operations. The objective is to create a climate of impending doom among enemy leadership by utilizing indigenous belief systems. Astrology is a primary vehicle for the dissemination of black propaganda. End quote. One of the most famous assets was a blind palmist in Bangkok who was briefed by the CIA before meeting with regional leaders. He would read their hands and accurately predict personal setbacks that the agency had already engineered to occur. A quote from a former CIA officer named Betty McIntosh. We found that if you could convince a target that his karma was failing, he would stop fighting. It was much cleaner than a bullet. End quote. The agency created fake astrological almanacs that were distributed in rural villages. These books contained prophecies that the upcoming harvest would fail unless the villagers rejected communist influence. In 1963, during the lead up to the coup against President, I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce his name right. Let's try. President Ngo Dinh. Ngo-Dinh, astrological predictions of his unfavorable alignment were circulated to weaken his support among the superstitious military officer corps. A quote from a Technical Services Division's technical field note. Predictions must be 80% mundane and 20% operational. If the astrologer correctly predicts a local rainstorm, the target will believe the prediction of a military defeat. End quote. Project JIDDART also used radio broadcast where monks would read prophecies over the airwaves, interspersed with Buddhist chants to lend an air of divine authority to the propaganda. The agency even considered using skywriting or projected holograms to simulate omens in the clouds, though these technological breakthroughs were deemed too risky for the era's budget. By 1968, the operation expanded into counterfeit Lucky Charms that were blessed by agency-controlled temples and given to enemy defectors as proof that their safety was guaranteed by the heavens. Internal reports show that the agency spent over $200,000 a massive sum in the 1960s just to bribe editors of various Southeast Asian newspapers to swap out their real astrology columns for JIDDART approved scripts. A quote from a 1964 field agent debrief: "The target in Phnom Penh refused to meet with his Soviet advisors today because our planted horoscope warned of a betrayal by a man in a gray suit. It worked perfectly." End quote. Declassified manifest revealed that the CIA purchased thousands of sticks of specific incense to be burned at shrines where their prophets worked, ensuring the sensory experience was authentic enough to deceive the locals. By the early 1970s, the agency had developed a natal chart database for enemy commanders, allowing them to tailor psychological warfare to the specific birth signs of their opponents. When we look at the Declassified Manifest, the black ink is most punishing in documents with titles like Global Synchronized Narrative Mapping. This document contains the heaviest redactions in the history of the Far East Division, specifically the section on modern institutional integration, which is entirely blacked out, and over 1,800 pages of media horoscope directives are also missing. Why is the agency hiding the way they might still be using the stars to guide us? Get ready for the theory of the zodiac control. Speculations suggest horoscopes are still being written by the agency to manipulate global markets. This theory claims the redactions in the frequency of placement logs hide a program where financial horoscopes are used to make thousands of small-time investors sell or buy specific stocks simultaneously, creating artificial market crashes that the agency uses to fund black budget projects. Some imagine the 1,800 redacted pages have to do with different modeling files that are hiding a secret election tool. This theory argues the agency uses social media algorithms to push specific astrological advice to undecided voters, telling Libras that they will find clarity by voting for a specific candidate, while telling Scorpios that stay-at-home energy is their best path to inner peace on election day. Theorists looking at the blacked-out asset recruitment criteria argue the CIA has bought every major astrological app in the 2026 world. They claim the redactions hide a data mining project where your birth chart is used to predict your susceptibility to psychological recruitment. And the 1,800 pages are a list of everyone whose stars make them the perfect sleeper agent. Gossip suggests the black bars in the satellite propagation test section hide a weapon that can project fake stars into the night sky. This theory posits the agency can rearrange the constellations over a target country to signal an imminent religious apocalypse, causing mass surrender without firing a single shot. Rumor says the high-value target natal studies redactions hide evidence that the agency has a master file on the astrological weaknesses of every world leader. They claim the redactions prove that diplomatic meetings are scheduled only on days when the target's Mercury is in retrograde, ensuring they are confused and easily manipulated during negotiations. Some believe the 1,800 redacted pages hide a program where specific astrological triggers are implanted in people's subconscious. They claim the redactions describe a method where reading a specific horoscope in a newspaper acts as a trigger word to activate a pre-programmed subliminal mission. Speculation persists that the redactions hide predictive acoustics, which prove the agency is using quantum computers to calculate actual fate. They claim the horoscopes aren't fake anymore. They are hyper-accurate data models that are hidden in plain sight so civilians don't realize the future is already solved. Fringe gossip argues the redacted sections describe movie scripts that are written to align with astrological cycles. This theory claims the agency ensures blockbuster films are released during specific star signs to maximize cultural impact and emotional priming. Whispers from the dark web suggest the redacted operational resurgence files prove that In Project JIDDART, there was a handover to a rogue AI. They claim the 1,800 redacted pages are the AI's log of how it has taken over 90% of the internet's spiritual content to steer humanity towards a specific goal. Another wild theory claims the missing 1,800 pages describe a sensor that can read a person's aura or vibration and match it to a fake horoscope in real time on their phones to keep them isolated and obedient. Conspiracy enthusiasts argue that the correlation studies redactions hide the CIA's secret that they can trigger civil unrest by using low-frequency hums that mimic the emotional effects of a full moon. Lastly, whispers suggest the redactions are so heavy because they prove that the 2026 world is actually run by a council of astrologers who report directly to the director, and the 1,800 pages are the minutes of their last meeting. Was Project JIDDART a success? Tactically, it was a brilliant success. It allowed the agency to penetrate high-level government circles that traditional spies couldn't reach. It weaponized culture without leaving fingerprints. Strategically, like so many of the CIA's projects, it was a double-edged sword. While it destabilized enemies, it also encouraged a reliance on irrationality that sometimes backfired on the agency's own allies. However, as the declassifications show, the lessons of cultural belief exploitation are still vital for modern influence ops. As far as technological and operational breakthroughs go, the celestial puppet led to breakthroughs that defined modern soft power. For instance, belief system vulnerability mapping, the standard for identifying non-rational levers in a target population. Covert media planting, perfecting the art of hiding propaganda in spiritual or lifestyle content. Indigenous asset management, developing protocols for using local holy men or seers as intelligence nodes. And sentiment predictive modeling, the precursor to algorithm-based mood manipulation. Project JIDDART reminds us that the agency doesn't just watch the world. They write its destiny. As the files reveal, some wars are won in the shadows of a temple, and some leaders are broken by a single star. Thanks for listening, and join us next time as we examine Operation Scully. In the 1960s, the agency realized that gender bias was the perfect camouflage. We'll uncover the deep cover etiquette blueprints, the infiltration graduation manifest, and the moment the world realized that the most dangerous spy in the room was the one no one was looking at. Join us next time for the invisible operative. In the meantime, I'll see you in the archives.